we are going live this afternoon with committed relationship coach Ken Blackman. And Ken loves human connection and has built his career for the last 20 years around supporting couples to navigate a whole host of challenges that arise in relationship and also to get clear on what it is that they want. Ken's work has been featured in Cosmo and Tim Ferriss's 4-hour series, The Business Insider, and elsewhere. He's also a regular contributor to the Good Men Project. And here is Ken now. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. So good to be here with you.
Yeah, it's good to be here. We planned this months ago, and so I'm glad that we are here getting to chat and dive into all the awesome work that you're doing. And
Hmm.
yeah, I wanted to just start by maybe having you share a little bit about how you got into the work you're doing and also what it is that you really focus on.
Yeah, yeah. So I was 22, 23, 3 years ago. I was a software engineer and I was successful and had a good life mostly, but my personal life was not great at all. Like I didn't know how to relate with women. I didn't know how to have intimacy. I didn't really know how to connect, you know. I knew how to connect with friends, but I didn't really know how to connect at an intimate level. And so I needed help, and I got coaching from someone from a group actually, and it was really transformative to learn how to connect with another human being and how to be intimate and how to have a good sex life. And it was so transformative for me. I just thought this is actually the kind of work that I want to do.
Mm.
So I studied with my mentors and started seeing how they do what they do, and like they were teaching courses, and I started helping them teach courses and ended up quitting my job and just doing this full time. So, and I've been doing that ever since, and I've never looked back. It's like such gratifying work to do.
Mm. Do you remember, I guess, from the time that you were kind of starting, like, were there any like major insights? I'm sure there were so many, but like anything that sticks out in terms of like, what if I had known this my whole life, like this would have just looked so different? Like, is there anything that kind of really jumped out at you in the very beginning as you were changing your entire life to organize around meaningful connection?
How much people thought the same way that I did, because I thought, it's like, oh, this is just another human being like me. Do you know what I mean? And
Mm,
if I just relate with them just as a human being, that because I thought that I thought that women were aliens. I really, like I just didn't, I had never connected before. So just to see that people are just like me and they think like me and they're, the similarities of like all the things that I am embarrassed about or they're embarrassed about, all the things I love, they love. And so there's so much more in common with each other than we think. And I think that was a big breakthrough for me.
beautiful. Yeah. Just feeling like kind of less alone or less on your own in
Mm-hmm.
your being.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
huge. And I remember when we had talked initially, we were talking a little bit about, the difference between dating versus being in relationship and the types of skills that we
Mm-hmm.
need in those different kind of modes of connection with each other. So I'd love if you can shed a little light on how you think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, what I notice a lot in the dating scene, and this is actually partly why I was so excited to connect with you and the different way that you're approaching this, because you're you're coming up with ways to solve this or to get people past this. But what people can fall into in the dating scene is like, what are the skills of dating? There's like how you look, initial impressions, um, doing the right thing in terms of first dates and things like that. um, Whereas relating is just like a moment of connection between two human beings where the facade falls away, and all of a sudden it's like the person inside there and the person inside there are actually having a moment of connection. And so all the stuff we do to look our best and to put on our best impression and stuff like that is just in the hope that we'll have we'll just have that moment of connection where I see you and you see me, and the facade falls away, and all of a sudden you have that moment of, like, I use the word connection. It's so important. Like, I don't even have a definition. It's a thing you can only experience with another human being. But everything we do in dating is to get to that moment. And if you don't have that moment, chances are you're not going to have a relationship, because the relationship is built on those moments. So, and if you do have a moment like that, it doesn't matter whether your car was nice, or whether there was like moments of awkward silences, so
Yeah,
yeah.
it's true. I've heard a lot of people say that they really feel frustrated with a lot of the small talk, and that it just feels really tiring, that whole process. And I think so much of what feels tiring to people is all the effort that goes into that facade, and
Hmm.
then not receiving that nourishing connection ultimately, or not feeling like the ratio of connection to performance or presentation is like way off. So
Yeah.
yeah. What are some things that you can, I guess, because I know you work a lot with couples, and so maybe like talking about what you do with couples when, because even in a committed relationship, you can lose connection. So I'm curious to hear,
Yeah.
like, how do we get people into that space where they're able to connect?
Yeah. So there's a few things. First of all, choosing honesty over choosing, whatever you think is going to feel good. Uh, if you're going to have a one-time interaction with someone, then you're oriented towards all the things you can do to have it feel the best it can feel. And that's
Mm,
great. But if you're going to wake up with that person the next morning, or if you're going to see that person, you're going to see him again in a few days, and it's going to be ongoing, your best strategy is honesty, even when it's uncomfortable.
mhm,
Like, take a chance that the person that you're talking to is willing to have those uncomfortable conversations in order to have it be better and better and better and better and better. Like, the reason you have an uncomfortable conversation is to get through something so that you can get to a better place. So the first thing is just honesty over, just choosing to make it feel good, right?
yeah, peacemaking or
Um, and then the second thing is, I'd say, like, presuming the best about the other person. Like, if there's something you don't know and you're starting to build a case about them in your mind, you're starting to get worried or paranoid, or like, what's going on there, like, presume the best about this person, and little by little that'll hopefully start to be the case. Like, you
mm,
know, like, presume that they're not hurting you on purpose. Presume that there's something that they didn't know, that if you just talk to them about it. Presume that they are caring. Presume that, like, maybe they're just having a moment of selfishness, and they're just not noticing you, and you can talk to them about it. Like, presume the best.
It's true. I think it's easy to kind of go into that very skeptical mind when you're in a place of
Yeah.
pain or being closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or being accusatory based on the past experiences, that you've had with other people. So,
Yeah, and I think this also can apply to dating as well, where, if something's not, sitting right, obviously there's certain moments where you want to be discerning. You don't know this person as well. You haven't chosen to give them your whole heart, but to, like, yeah, be truthful, have harder conversations. I'm curious, yeah, how would you, relate this to newer relationships?
yeah, in the beginning, like, especially if you've been on the dating scene for a while, you can fall into a pattern where, you know, you're kind of making really quick judgments about people,
Mm-hmm.
like the really quick sniff test. And maybe someone, maybe like all you have is the most instant, just first impression stuff to go on. And that may be like, well, is there immediate attraction? Is there, do I vibe with this person? And those things are good first impressions, but, maybe this person was actually going to be better for you, but you skipped past them too quickly, you know? So, um, if you're going to get anywhere with anyone, there has to be enough time for you to see who this person really is. Like there are things you're going to be in a relationship, there's things you're going to be discovering about them for as long as you're with them. It's continual discovery. So if be careful to make judgments or choices based on first impression when you didn't really get a chance to see what's actually there behind it.
Yeah, it's true. I think so many of those defenses are up or the facade is up. So it's really hard to kind of see beyond some of those initial impressions at first glance. And you have to give it a little time, maybe like
Yeah.
three interactions or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. To see what's there, to see what this person is like.
Mm.
When
And
you're in a big pool of like opportunities, the way that you make decisions can be really like snap judgment, like no to you, 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 no to you. You're looking for something, but you don't really give people the time that it takes to really see what might exist between the two of you.
yeah, that is true. And you had talked about dating as kind of being like a mini relationship in some way. Can you say
Yeah.
more about like, yeah, what that looks like to you?
Yeah. Like, let's say you're out on a date. Like, is there a way that you're having the small talk, you've got your banter down, you're witty and things are feeling good. And maybe there's some awkward silences in there or like whatever, like you're noticing how, let's say you're at dinner and you're noticing how each other eats and stuff like that, whatever it is. But is there a way that you can kind of move past the facade, reach all the way over there and just talk person to person with the other human being, like human being to human being, what's really true? And sometimes the way you can do that is like if there's an awkward silence, you just say, wow, that was really awkward. Or if you're having a feeling that's not being said, or you can feel something from them that's not being said, and you just say it, even when it's not like it's against the rules of dating to say something, but it's true and it's like human to human. Like, can you have that moment of humanity with this other human being and see how they respond? Like, I
Mm.
see someone in there, behind the show that you're putting on. And if the person in you can connect with the person over there, then you really get a chance to see, oh, this is what it's like to be in relationship, to be in connection, to be in intimacy with this other human being.
Yeah, I think what so many people hate about dating is it does feel like a performance, like you can't let your guard down. And I think like we've just inherited all these ideas about what dating should look like. So then we always think we're doing it wrong because it doesn't feel good. And
Yeah.
that's when I think people get into these patterns. But it's true, if you are like, if the whole intention is to how can I connect with this person in the here and now, forget where
Hmm.
it's going to go or not going to go,
Yeah.
like that's a successful date versus needing to win something or convince somebody of something or have them like you or have you like them. Like that's not
Yeah.
necessarily successful. It's just
Yeah.
a lot of
I
energy.
hear, I hear so many people say, and it's weird, it's almost paradoxical. They say, well, I had a really good time with this person on this date. I don't know why I just don't feel like, I mean, there's just something missing. Like
Hmm.
everything went well, everything went fine, but something, I don't know why I don't feel drawn to do it again. Whereas if maybe not everything went smoothly or there was some stuff happened, but you had a moment of humanity with this human being, like wow, like something memorable, like what's going to want what's going to have you want to spend time with this person and connect and actually have a relationship with this person is, did you have a moment of humanity with them? Did you have a moment of intimacy and connection with them?
Yeah, and it's true. I'm thinking back to like this really silly personal experience where I would on a first date, I was moving the next day and this person was like, "Hey, do you want to hang out again?" And I was like, I said it as a joke, but I was like, "If you want to help me move tomorrow,
then like for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
they were like, okay. So it was
Yeah.
literally on our second date, this person helped me move out of my apartment,
Yeah.
and it was absolutely mortifying in every way because it's like it's like the worst. It's like the worst second date, but it was actually really a great. It was great because it was just so revealing, and I was like, well, there's all my cards right there.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be like that's the kind of thing that actually bonds people, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so the more you're willing to be real, have a moment of reality with the other person, the more you get a chance to see what it's going to be feel like
Mm.
to be in relationship with them as opposed to just be dating with them, you know? Like
Yeah.
maybe all you want is to have someone that you go out with occasionally and have a good time. Like you're tired of going out alone. You like to go out, you like to go do stuff, and you just want someone to go do that with. You don't actually want to be in an intimate relationship. You just want someone to go out with. So then your focus can be on these are the experiences I like to have. I'm looking for someone who likes to have these kinds of experiences, right? That's one kind of thing. But if you're talking about wanting someone who, like, the person when something goes good in your life, you want to tell you someone that they're the first person you want to tell. When you're struggling, they're the person that you want to talk to, you know?
Mm.
Like the person that you are honest with and truthful with all the time. That kind of intimacy and that kind of connection and that kind of relationship, you like the sooner you start being that person, the sooner you start seeing it, you know, if there's connection at that level, you know,
Mm.
if this is really the person who can connect with you at that level. And the same the other way, like the sooner they start being real with you, the sooner you start seeing, you know what, I actually like the real person who's in there, not just the best impression.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think one thing I'm curious to hear your perspective on is like, I've seen people take this maybe like so far the other direction where they're like so open on the first date, almost as a means to like, here's everything, let's get it over with. Do you still want to ever talk to me again? And it's like,
Yeah.
hold on. Like, it's
Yeah.
like the opposite. So yeah,
Yeah.
what is that? And what are
Yeah.
your
You
thoughts on
can
that?
absolutely, you can go too far with it. You know,
Yeah.
you can like, you can, there's two ways to sabotage this. One is to deliberately share all your worst qualities because you don't want to do the work of like getting to a place where they
Mm,
discover this about you later after you've gotten your hopes up. So you lead with all your worst qualities to make them go away, and if they're still there, then there's a chance.
yeah.
That's not going to be conducive. Um, and the other
Mm,
way is to talk and share too much and not notice that the other person, like not notice what the other person, how the other person's responding, or not notice that they're not a yes to this kind of level of intimacy.
mm,
So so it has to be in connection. So you share something about yourself, or you say something that's true, or you like open the door a little with them and see how they respond. Do they walk through that door and share something about themselves? Do they walk through that door and notice you and take an interest? Do they walk through that door and like, oh yeah, you know what's funny? I was feeling that awkward moment too. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, you know? Like how you do it in connection. You don't just like fire hose them with all this stuff. You
yeah.
know, you share, it's a sharing. You're inviting them to open their door too. If they're just sitting there, uh-huh, yeah, uh-huh, and you're trying to like do it, then they're not a yes to this way of play, you know?
Yeah, I think the key is that disclosure is not the same as connection, and what you're trying to have is a
Yes.
connection. That's
Yes.
the, and so
Yeah.
that requires a certain level of, I think, two things: presence and vulnerability, like being willing
Yeah.
to be in that present moment of awkwardness and know what's coming up in you. And so we had talked a little bit about like accountability and self-awareness as such like key aspects to having that kind of
Yes. Yes.
connection.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
talk a little about that.
Yeah. And also, like you mentioned some really important ones. Vulnerability is really important. Presence is really important. Like you are inviting them to a different level of play that
Yeah.
sometimes doesn't happen in dating. Like I'm going here because this is actually the way that I want to relate with people. This is the way that I want to relate with my partner if we're going to be partners. Would you like to come along and play at this level, you know? And have it be a two-way street. And you do have to have a lot of self-awareness, and you do have to have a lot of like self-responsibility in doing that. But you're doing it with them. You're not doing it at them or, you know, dragging them along or like, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of where paying attention to the other person and to yourself is so critical. Because I've also seen like people kind of get into this almost like wellness talk, and like we're so analytical and like we're so tuned
Mm-hmm.
in that we're like not tuned in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just going through the motions, right?
yeah.
And like think about sex, like when you're not present and when you're just going through the motions and like, you know, you're physically there with the other person, but you're not actually there with the person, you know, versus when
Mm-hmm.
you're fully present with everything that's happening and kind of experiencing what they're experiencing with them and they're experiencing what you're experiencing, and it's really this shared beautiful experience, right? So take that same vibe and bring it into the date, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in both instances, it's an exchange of energy and
Yeah.
you-ness. So,
Yeah,
yeah. And
exactly.
um, the other thing I want to touch on before, whoa, we're going quick here. We're covering a lot of ground. Is values. And we had talked about like values we inherit kind of growing up or
Hmm.
societally, and then coming to know our own values and coming to accept and be okay with our own values, and then also bring that into how we date and how we end up in relationship. So if you
Yeah.
could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, you know, there's all throughout life, we're being inundated with this idea about how relationships are supposed to go, how they're supposed to be. And we don't even know that we have these beliefs or like, you know, these expectations because they're so deeply ingrained. They're just kind of the water we swim in, you know? And um, what happens is you have a moment of connection like this with another, like this person, like the person inside of you and the person inside the other person have this moment of connection. And then all of a sudden you realize you have really different ideas about how relationships work. Or maybe you have different political views, or maybe you have different religious views, or you know, you're just different in so many ways. And so there's this balance between
Hmm.
um, like do the top level things line up so that you're not constantly fighting about basic truths versus do the two of you have deep connection, chemistry, you know, like sharing life together, you know, enjoying each other's company. And it's going to really be a balance of those things, and you may have to dismantle some of the things you think are supposed to happen in a relationship and construct something with this other human being like this is how I'd like our relationship to go. They're going to have their opinions about how it's supposed to go. And between the two of you, you have to figure out what's real and true between the two of you kind of from scratch, you know, like you have to
Yeah.
kind of throw out what you think is supposed to happen and create this, like this creation is unique. There's nobody else on the planet who's going to have your relationship. It's not going to look like any other relationship on the planet. It's constructed from two really complicated, unique, quirky individuals who are figuring out how to do life together,
Yeah.
and that's going to be different from any other relationship on the planet. So you have to kind of build it from scratch, you know, like take everything you think is true, but be willing to like not just say this is what I was looking for. Do you fit my box, you know? But
Mm.
no, you're another human being who has their needs and wants and desires. Let's create what this relationship looks like. I don't know if I'm answering the question you had, but you know, that's what came to
Yeah.
mind.
No, I'm appreciating where you went with it, because I think there's a lot there around like building blocks and patterns that we inherit, that we see. And there's all this, you know, dating advice and relationship advice, but it truly is about the unique connection between the two very specific individuals in the
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think just this invitation of make no assumptions, like let everything
Mm-hmm.
be a discussion as to what feels good for
Mm-hmm.
each of you, instead of inheriting, oh, we should do it this way because that's how it's done, is so
Yeah.
important.
And in the last few minutes, I'll just say, like, when you're getting into a relationship, notice what you think you're entitled to,
Mm.
and see if you can dismantle that a little bit, and
Hmm.
just come from the place of, like, I'm not entitled to anything, but I'm going to be clear about what I do want. I'm going to be clear about what I don't want. I'm going to be clear about what I'm willing, what I'm willing to say yes to, what I'm not willing to say yes to. Um, what the reason I call out this thing about entitlement is, it's when you feel you're entitled to something and you're not getting it from your partner is wrong. They're the ones
Yeah.
who are not living up to what they're supposed to be doing. And all of a sudden, you give yourself permission to demonize them and make them the wrong one.
Mm.
So if you can dismantle your entitlement a little bit, and always, always, always remember that it's a co-creation, then
Mm-hmm.
you're free to say, this is what I want. This is this is where my boundaries are. This is what I'd love to have happen. This is what I'm very willing and happy to lean into, even though it's not my preference. And that's how it is a co-creation. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's so powerful and like well said. I think, yeah,
yeah,
entitlement's a good place to start looking at where you get frustrated, because there might be some belief of entitlement that's
yeah,
underlying, or where
yeah.
you want to be, you know, the rightness.
And it also helps you remember, like, helps you keep in the state that your partner is also a right human being the way they are. And
Mm-hmm.
you're creating something together. And then you can see, is this going to work? Maybe we're not a good match, but I haven't demonized them. I haven't turned them into the bad guy.
Yeah. And I think too, when that kind of stuff is on the table, you can also really see where your growth edges are, where you can soften, what's a really hard boundary for now, or maybe always, like these kind of places where you can meet yourself and really see, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is what's important to them. How important
Mm-hmm.
is this to me? This,
Mm-hmm.
like, where am I on this? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think this comes
Yeah.
up a lot.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure, the other thing I would love to just hear you talk about before we wrap up is the idea of like not becoming a good dater. Otherwise, you'll never end up really with the kind of relationship or
Yeah.
partnership. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So this was something that came up in our conversation, where it's like, you can, if you're dating a lot, you can end up getting good at dating. Like, you know all the right places to take your partner, you know all the right things to say, like, the date,
Mm,
you can have it be that the date goes well, but you're not building relationship skills. And, like, what's the
mm,
difference? It's that thing about connection. So that's the difference. Like, are you taking steps that are going to be conducive to connection? Are you going to be taking steps that are conducive to, like, an ongoing relationship? So be careful about, like, falling into the getting better and better and better and better at being a really, like, the perfect date,
mm,
which will have someone want to date you more, versus, like, what it means to be a good relationship partner.
mm.
So are you being clear and honest? Are you being generous? Do they know what your desires are? Like, are you being forthcoming? Are you, like, opening up the intimacy between you? Like, or are you, like, it kind of goes back to where we started, which is, are you looking to have the date feel good? That's an important thing to do. Or are you looking to create connection with this human being, which sometimes feels great, sometimes feels, it's the whole range of feelings. So,
That's a good point. Yeah, that connection isn't always necessarily a feel good thing, but it could be raw, it could be hard, but at
yeah,
least both of you
yeah,
are fully there in it.
yeah. Like, you could walk away from a date where one of you cried, but something about it is memorable. Something about it has you want to spend time with that person again. So like a bond was created, like a connection was created.
Mm.
And that's what the relationship is going to be built on. Not how slick and smooth you were, not how, like all the superficial polish is important, and getting past all that superficial polish is also important if you want to actually have a relationship with this person, right? How real can you be and have connection there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, of course, with that does come this added level of vulnerability. And that's where it's like the more grounded in yourself you can be, the more self-compassionate you can be to really
Mm-hmm.
navigate the emotional kind of twists and turns of what it means to actually be in relationship with other human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's one more thing to say about this, which ties in with what you were saying earlier about like, if you, if you're, you, it helps to be emotionally mature, it helps to
Mm,
be like, if you're working on yourself to work through the places where you're, kind of emotionally struggling, or, like codependent, or all the things that we work on within ourselves to
yeah.
move into a place of emotional intelligence, that all those things are still very necessary in order to have a good relationship. So it's
Mm,
not just being real with all of your worst qualities, like be truthful about where you're at, because you want this person to connect with you, not your facade.
mm-hmm,
But the more emotional maturity you can build, the better the relationship is going to be. And there
mm.
are people who really need to take the time to work on themselves before they're going to be ready to have a relationship.
Yeah, totally. And I think also, like, kind of going back to what we were saying earlier with like, let's dump all the negative stuff. And, you know, I think sometimes if we don't accept what's what we're all about within ourselves, we might hope that somebody else does that for us. And I think like that's where that kind of personal accountability comes in. It's like, am I sharing all my, let's call them, they're not shortcomings, but like challenges or like shadows or wounds, we'll call them places that are just raw,
Hmm.
in hopes that somebody else will accept them before I do. Like there's,
Hmm.
you know, to kind of be aware of where you're at, but not even to like see that as a fixed thing, because that's also always like, you know, healing and growing and changing and evolving,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's not like this
yeah,
fixed
yeah.
fixed
I
bag of
mean,
wounds.
yeah, none of us are perfect. All of us come with our baggage. Like
Yeah.
it's a matter of, it's a continual for the rest of your life, getting better and better and better. But we all have our baggage. But like, think of it this way. You're on a date and there's this thought that's nagging at you. And it's like, oh God, I can't say that, like that is bad dating etiquette. So you have a choice, and either choice, there's no right or wrong choice, but this is the choice. If you don't say that thing, you're making a choice for the date to go well. And that might be the
Mm,
right choice. If you decide to take a chance and say that thing, like break break etiquette and just say this thing that's in your mind, then you're taking a chance of actually building a relationship with this person. Like, you're going to say it, you're going to get a chance to see how they respond when you have a moment of realness. Like, do
mhm,
they show up with their realness? Are they like, oh, I was thinking that too? Or like, how are they going to respond when you have one moment of being a real human being,
mm,
right? And that is, if you decide to take that chance on that thought and say that thought, you will learn so much about whether there's a good relationship to be built with this person by how they respond to that one thing. So I would recommend at least once on a date, take that chance.
mhm, mhm.
Say the thing that's in the back of your mind that you don't want to say.
It's
Just
a
at
hard
least
thing.
once, it'll
Yeah.
give you a chance to see how they respond. Like, if that's the moment of realness between two human beings, where connection will either be made, or you'll realize, oh no, this person, isn't, you'll know for sure in that moment whether this person is worth, seeing and building something with or not.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take the risk, and worst case scenario, you fall flat.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But then
Yeah, exactly. It gives you something
yeah.
to go off
And
of.
if it doesn't go well, go home, look yourself in the mirror and realize that you made the right decision to learn what was really there between you and this other human being. Like it was either way, it was a good choice because you got to the nitty-gritty of what's there between you and this other person.
That's true. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think like sometimes we don't say things because we already kind of know it's not going to land well intuitively. And so we're trying to prolong something, but it actually keeps us from having that closeness. Or we're
Mm-hmm.
totally wrong about our initial impression, and that person
Mm-hmm.
really can meet us in that place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really an
Yeah.
enjoyable discovery. It's a delightful moment.
Yeah, or maybe this moment will spark a deep conversation between the two of you, like you'll discover some
Hmm.
differences, but you'll discover the way that you relate with each other over your differences actually works well.
Yeah, totally. So, Ken, tell us about any, I guess, offerings you have or things you have coming up, ways that people can get involved with your work.
Yeah, so primarily right now I'm coaching people, I'm coaching individuals and I'm coaching couples around the skills of relationship.
Mm,
Um, in a month or two, I'm going to start having office hours where people can send me a video question and
mm,
then I'll send a video answer and we'll have a dialogue that way. That's not up yet, but if that's interesting to any of your peeps, reach out and I'll get you on the queue for when I start doing office hours that way.
I love that. Are you gonna consider like sharing any of the video responses you create? Like, I'm sure you'll have a lot of
If
good
they
content from that.
if they give permission, then yeah, it'll
Yeah,
be I'll share a lot of that for sure.
so cool. Yeah, if it's anonymous or consensual, obviously.
Hmm.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share and
My
connect this morning.
my pleasure. I said this in the beginning, but I love what you're creating with this website. So I
Thank
wish you
you.
the best of success, and I'm sure our paths will continue to cross.
Yes, likewise. Thank you so much. I'm going to share a link to this in our IGTV. And yeah, thank you again, Ken. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Bye.